In 2010, Mattel introduced the world to Monster High. Monster High is a range of dolls similar to Barbie, except they're all monsters. This exciting range of children's dolls was designed by Garret Sander, who started out designing packaging for pre-existing Mattel properties and ended up designing his own toy line. I have a wild one-night stand of a relationship with Monster High. I know who a lot of the characters are. I know Draculaura, Claudine Wolf, Frankie Stein. I'd see them all the time online and appearing in stuff. I have a good-ish idea how the series works, not only because I've played a few of the video games casually, but because for a good 4 years or so, I managed the toy section in a high street discount retail chain store. Most of my knowledge is through osmosis, having stocked and sold a lot of Monster High toys and dolls. I liked seeing the store shelves full, emblazoned with bright, good-looking packaging and those adorable dolls inside. So the truth is, I kind of have a soft spot for Monster High. This tier list is my excuse to learn a little bit more about it, maybe figure out what it is that manages to draw even the boys to this line of dolls intended for girls. Boys like me, 100% certified lad. What is it about Monster High that has garnered such a passionate following? I mean, I know why I'm passionate about the franchise. These ladies are freaking hot. So let's get it on. Because there are only a few proper games, we'll be looking at the versions for other platforms as well, if they are significantly different. We will be placing them from spooktacular through awful, brilliant.
I know I said brilliant, but when it came to recording the rest of this, I said beautiful instead. They're both great puns, alright? Shut the up.
Creepy, dreadful, exhumed, and frightening. Let's get right into it then.
M-O-N-S-T-E-R, monsters, so bizarre.
Our first game on this tier list is the Nintendo DS version of Ghoul Spirit. This is a basic adventure game with little actual substance. Being a THQ-published title during their kiddie filth era, such low-effort trash is unfortunately to be expected. It was Imagine Engine, a subsidiary of Foundation 9, behind this game's development. They predominantly developed children's titles, and according to their development history, the company seems to be intimately familiar with making bad games. Should come as no surprise then, that the Nintendo DS version of Ghoul Spirit isn't very good, but rather very isn't good. It might even be bad. You get to choose what kind of ghoul you want to be from 6 different ghoul types: Gorgon, Werewolf, Mummy, Vampire, Zombie, or as the game calls it, Mashup Monster, which is a weird way of saying Frankenstein's monster. Then you complete dry fetch quests for various Monster High characters. The game has a basic map screen and a quest log, a bare-bones mission system in the form of text messages, and small but admittedly quaint-looking areas to explore. The game lacks collectibles or any kind of motivation at all, definitely feeling like more of a cash grab than a labor of love. This reminds me a lot of those 2 bad Nintendo DS games we looked at on the BB Blocksberg tier list. Much like those, this has tacked on minigames that aren't properly explained, and also much like those, Ghoul Spirit is definitely a game I simply cannot recommend to anyone. I'm afraid this one is already dead, so we're burying it back into the frightening tier. Maybe this would have appealed to some players back in the day on account of being a portable title, but something more top-down and pixel art based would have not only aged better, but would have also been a tried and tested way of putting an adventure game together quickly.
M-O-N-S-T-E-R, monsters, so bizarre.
Next we have the Nintendo Wii version of Ghoul Spirit. Same publisher, same developer. I was surprised to find out just how similar they actually are. I'm committed to treating them as separate entries, because although they are similar, the input methods are a little bit different, and the game has some unique features on Wii. So this is essentially the same game, but with a lot more polish. For starters, the graphics are, as to be expected, much nicer. Characters look on-model this time, the environment is a lot more detailed, there are now 3D models and decorations strewn about too. Some of it looks like a Nintendo DS game got blown up to full television size, but that's also part and parcel of the Monster High aesthetic, especially this early on, while it was still finding its footing. The gameplay itself is awfully similar, though there are some changes made to suit the Wii Remote and Nunchuck combo. Instead of staring at a map on the second screen, you now have a bat familiar that faces in the direction of whatever mission or quest you're trying to complete. The minigames appear to be much better explained. A lot of my criticisms for this game in particular are that its style of gameplay never really lends itself to Nintendo Wii, nor does the seemingly endless fetch questing, sometimes to and from the same room several times, just to complete one character's set of missions. It takes about half an hour to complete any one character's missions, and most of the time is spent on loading screens, or running down the school halls over and over again. The teenage girls that would have played this game, I'm not so sure they would have enjoyed it. I know I don't speak for all teenage girls, but I do speak for the teenage girl inside of me that is fighting to get out. She, straight up hates this game. Not as painful as the DS version, though. This goes into the dreadful tier.
MONSTER, monsters, so bizarre.
So in 2012, THQ as we knew it then ended up falling apart and eventually going bankrupt. It is unsurprising then that Mattel had to seek out a new publisher for their licensed drivel. Though given the time frame, maybe Mattel walked and then THQ couldn't recover. Who can say? Now published by Little Orbit and developed by Game Machine Studios LLC, the Nintendo DS version of 2012 Skultimate Roller Maze is a rather generic, run-of-the-mill racing game with some mechanics I'm not particularly fond of. For starters, you have a team of 3 racers which you can cycle between, but it feels kind of pointless. Each one can hold an item, and they have their own special skill, which I suppose might lend some sense to having 3 team members, but like I said, only one of them is on screen at any one time. What's the point? Well, the team mechanic's true purpose will become more apparent as we move on to the version for slightly more powerful platforms. But let's finish up here first. Because it is a roller skating game, bumping into enemies can knock you off balance or even throw you to the ground. It is always immensely frustrating when this happens, and it seems like the enemy can do this to you all the time, but I can't seem to do it to them consistently. Reminds me of getting hit by a combination of items in Mario Kart. Frustrating to say the least. All the standards are here: forward-facing projectiles, oil slicks, speed boosts. Like I said, run-of-the-mill mascot racer. Course design is generic, but fine. Unfortunately, the cornering is tighter than an old nun's arsehole, and the game is about as appealing too. Skultimate Roller Maze's performance and framerate on Nintendo DS are also very rough, with the game feeling like it's about to buckle under its own weight. Much like Ghoul Spirit, it is clear that the Nintendo DS version exists out of a contractual obligation. I will be placing this into exhumed tier. Now let's step things up.
MONSTER, monsters, so bizarre.
Because the Wii and 3DS versions of Skultimate Roller Maze are more similar from a gameplay, engine, and graphics point of view, I have combined them both into this entry. The Wii version came out day and date with the DS version and features motion controls, so I avoided it for that reason, while the 3DS version released 3 months later and allows you to play with buttons and stuff, so that is preferable. You are seeing the Nintendo 3DS version in this footage, as that is the version I played for the list. Big improvement over the DS version, as if that's a shocker. A lot of the more prominent issues I experienced with the Nintendo DS version are not present here. There is a genuine reason for the ghouls to be switched around, with each one getting tired if they are skating for too long at any one time. This was probably left out with the DS version due to limitations or development time or budget. The acceleration and brake have now moved to the triggers, which feels more in line with contemporary racing games of the time, and the game doesn't lag anywhere near as bad as before. The order of the tracks has been switched around, and the graphical fidelity is much higher than the DS version, making it quite a looker of a game, honestly. It is still a run-of-the-mill mascot racer, but some of the identity that the game was threatening to have before is starting to surface, even if only subtly. Even folks who aren't interested in Monster High could maybe get something out of this. I'm moving this up to the creepy tier. Maybe worth a look if you're like me and you've got to play a little bit of everything, otherwise avoid.
MONSTER, monsters, so bizarre.
Based on the film of the same name, 13 Wishes is a more standard platformer, which after these other genres is something of a welcome change. To make sense of what the game is about, we need to quickly go over the plot of the film. That's right, this is a movie tie-in. Hundreds or even thousands of years ago, Gigi Grant, a magical genie, tries to stop her sister, the dark genie Wisp, from plunging the world into darkness during an upcoming eclipse. With the use of a magic mirror, the plan is foiled. This mirror, however, was broken into 13 pieces, and, to aid in her quest to achieve ultimate power, Wisp has spread those shards throughout the world inside of the lamp. Centuries later, the disaster begins anew as the lamp, discovered by an excavation team, has managed to find its way to the attic of Monster High. While in detention for causing trouble on the first day of school, Howleen Wolf, younger sister of popular character Claudine, accidentally releases Gigi from the lamp. To start with, the wishes that Howleen makes are small and mostly insignificant, but when Wisp's evil influence manages to take hold of Howleen's psyche, she then wishes for her sister Claudine to disappear. The rest of the main cast discover that Claudine is now trapped inside the lantern, and together they devise a plan to get trapped inside too, so they can break Claudine out of the lantern and stop Wisp from taking over the world during the next eclipse, when this Emil-looking ass covers the sun. However, the plan soon morphs into one to free Gigi from the influences of her sister, by finding the 13 pieces of the broken mirror and restoring it, allowing Wisp to be trapped once again. Each of the shards is kept behind some kind of crystal maze-esque puzzle, or a series of traps, so the idea lends itself pretty well to the world of video games. Well, does it? Actually, in a rather unexpected turn of events, the 13 Wishes video game is a continuation of the film, where instead of succeeding, the main cast fail to stop Wisp and she becomes all-powerful. A rather ballsy surprise to base your video game adaptation of a film on a previously non-existent bad ending. But a welcome change, to be sure. So now the main cast are once again plunged into the world of the lamp, having to find orbs, mirror pieces, and their fellow ghouls in a last-ditch attempt to defeat Wisp. I'm kinda glad I took the time out of one busy morning to watch the film, because not only was it actually an okay film, it gave me a greater context for the actual game. I'm sure there are other movie games that set themselves after the film in a hypothetical loss scenario, but it's the first time for me seeing that. Well played. Speaking of well played, I played a little bit of this one. In all honesty, it's a bit of a brain teaser, a bit of a head scratcher. It's a platformer, yes, but it's really more of like condensed Prince of Persia or Assassin's Creed, in the sense that there's a lot of hanging onto ledges, shimmying and moving boxes around onto switches. The actual platforming parts aren't too hot due to the camera not always showing you where you need to be or giving you enough of a visual clue as to the depth of some of the jumps you need to make. Each of the ghouls have to be unlocked, and they have their own special freaky floor you can use to navigate the obstacles. You can cycle through any of the characters at all times once you've unlocked them. Could you imagine only being locked to 2 or 3 of the characters at any one time, just arbitrarily? I'm getting bits of Garfield's Nightmare, maybe a waft or 2 of that Joe Wonder game that I played as part of a publisher opportunity not too long ago. A combination of basic, inoffensive platforming that could do with being loosened up, and some puzzles that ultimately boil down to just move box. Compared to other games we've seen so far, this is something of a solid title. Straight into Beautiful. If you're looking for potential gems on Nintendo DS, consider this one.
M-O-N-S-T-E-R, monsters, monsters, so bizarre.
Unlike the Nintendo DS version, the other releases of 13 Wishes are essentially the same game as each other. Whether that be on Wii, Wii U, or Nintendo 3DS, they play the same and have the exact same levels and stages. I would have played the 3DS version, but Citra doesn't get updates anymore, so I dusted off the Wii U console for this one. This version of the game then, it's a proper 3D platformer with large open areas and some actual platforming. Really, there's essentially 2 games here. There's the first style of game, the hub world, where there are small side quests, locked doors, and level entrance portals to find. This is the part I don't really like, as it is just more of Ghoul Spirit, the game that refuses to stay dead. I'm much more interested in the better, latter half of the game. I'm talking about the platforming stages. These also feature the occasional on-rails segment to break up the monotony. The stages involve some basic, dull platforming with the occasional use of your ghoul's freaky floor. For example, Claudine can sniff out new paths.
What's that smell?
Cleo can teleport, Frankie can detach her hand and let it go for a walk. Hold on. We're meant to be Frankie's hand, but you look over there, she's still got both hands. Wait, she doesn't keep this one up her vagina. Nah, no matter how you slice it, this isn't a particularly rewarding game. It's something of a halfway house between a solid platformer, but with a strong and highly noticeable hiss aftertaste like a Data Design Interactive title. A couple of things that would have greatly improved the gameplay for me, personally, would be getting rid of the reversed vertical camera. This isn't a flight sim, for Christ's sakes. Next, the characters all slide around like the whole game takes place on ice. It takes a little while after moving the stick to get going, which has led to so many misjudged jumps that wouldn't be a problem in practically any other platformer. This doesn't happen if you hold down the run button, so you have to hold down the run button all the time. And then one more thing, limiting each stage to just 2 or 3 playable ghouls per run is incredibly annoying when it comes to replaying or trying to find more collectibles. Unlike the Nintendo DS version, this means having to play and complete each stage over and over again, especially considering you usually only get to choose who just one of the characters will be, due to stage hazards that require certain characters to be able to navigate. The obvious solution is just to add in a character selector. In fact, the game has one, but only in the hub world, and only at one specific locker in the very starting room of the game, which means you need to traipse down the same hallway every single time you want to change your character, despite it basically being a simple character select menu. When you switch characters, it is pretty much instantaneous, and the minus button on the Wii U is not being used, so why not just map the character select menu to that? To find out how many goals you have left. Good luck. The game says I only need 31 to access the final area, the attic. I get to the attic and it says you need to complete more goals. It would be nice if it told me how many I've beaten and how many it wants me to beat, but no, that would make sense, wouldn't it? As for side missions, these annoying fetch quests are made worse by the requirement to run back to the first room every time you want to switch characters. And then you're just examining every single locker until you find the one that has the very specific item in it. Even the little things fuck me off, you know? Like, what's wrong with this footage? If you got it, pat yourself on the back. Ain't no shadows cast on your character model. They go to the effort of making this really pleasant looking desert location with atmospheric lighting and effects, only to then forget to cast simple environment shadows on the player model. Nope, they're all just baked into the environment. And once you see it, you simply can't not see it. While I would love to put this in a high tier, I just have to be honest with myself. Too much of this game pisses me off big time, and yet, I still feel compelled to put this in a high tier. It's going to have to go into beautiful tier, but with a caveat. It's a B tier game only if you have the patience for this sort of thing, otherwise it's not something worth playing at all. I think a few small tweaks would turn this into something far more enjoyable and easy to recommend, but it wouldn't necessarily fix the game's problems, just make them more bearable.
M-O-N-S-T-E-R, monsters, monsters, so bizarre.
This is our last entry. It is the very first Monster High game I ever played, and the last one released at the time of this video's creation, a whopping 9 years ago. This is something of a mixture of 2 previous games. There's Ghoul Spirit DNA with the quest system, exploring the school and creating your own ghoul, because of course Ghoul Spirit refuses to stay dead. And there's also 13 Wishes DNA in the form of great looking visuals and platforming mechanics. In short, New Ghoul in School is a genuinely okay game, which gave me a false impression of what the rest of the franchise's games would be like. So to begin with, you create your own ghoul to represent you. The game treats this as a unique selling point, obviously forgetting the fact you could do this 4 years earlier in Ghoul Spirit. You do have more, I guess, species of ghouls to pick from. You can be a Cyclops, which just looks... yikes. Seems kind of a waste to have selectable ghoul types and then they don't have any special traits. A werewolf being able to see in the dark, for example, or a vampire having some kind of stealth mechanic. Look, I'm not saying I want Oblivion or whatever, but at the same time, I want my choice of species to mean something. Then you're told it's time to go to school for your first day. No fun little cutscene where you get a letter inviting you to the school or anything like that. No context. It's just one block of text. It's your first day at Monster High. That feels cheap. Immediately you're in control of your ghoul, just outside the front door to the school, And once you walk forwards a little ways, you are stopped by Frankie Stein, who acts as the tutorial, telling you to see Headmistress Bloodgood. But at this point, pretty much the entire school is open to you, so you can explore if you like. There are glowing bugs and pennants to collect, which will reward you with in-game currency and achievements or trophies if you're playing on platforms where those are supported. In-game currency can be spent on clothes for your ghoul to wear. There's a whole slew of them to collect, and that's where the bulk of the playtime goes. If you do go to see Headmistress Bloodgood, you essentially begin the game's story. Though to call it that is incredibly generous, as it's the same to and fro thing from Ghoul Spirit. There is a new mechanic where you will sometimes be required to find things by pressing a button and following an arrow. It seems that all the different ghoul types possess the same power, so I don't know what makes us special, that people in the game send us out to find shit for them. When it comes to navigating the school, you have a full map and an arrow you can follow to show you to your next goal. So it really seems beginner-friendly in that regard. Ghoul Spirit on DS could have done with a navigation guide, as could have 13 Wishes. There are also smaller minigames dotted throughout. A puzzle where you can only move in straight lines, like a Pokemon Ice Gym or the Skylanders lockpicking minigame. There is also a fear-leading minigame which requires you to memorize button locations, which is not hard, but it does require you to have your head screwed on. As with most Monster High games, New Ghoul in School does boil down to completing fetch quests for other students, but the unlockable clothes and the ability to create your own ghoul, along with some of the better parts of 13 Wishes platforming to help you navigate the school, are a suitable trade-off. This is a genuinely solid title. The iCoffin feed is updated as you play, giving you a metric ton of world building and Monster High fan service, but it does cause crashes on PC, so even some of the game's more interesting features end up being more of a curse than a blessing. It's hard to put into words quite what I like about New Ghoul in School. Depending on what kind of day I've had, my opinion could go either way on this one. Let's say beautiful for New Ghoul in School. I had a strange affection for it, but in an ideal world, 13 Wishes platforming would have felt as loose and fluid as this. So while this game has great controls, everything I dislike about Ghoul Spirit and 13 Wishes side quests are dialed up to the max in New Ghoul in School. I could probably recommend this one to anybody curious about the series, as it certainly embodies the franchise's vibes the closest. And that's all of them. Let's go through the list once again in summary. In frightening tier, Ghoul Spirit for Nintendo DS. I couldn't get into this one. It's just so archaic and old-fashioned. There are plenty of games for Nintendo DS that do the adventure game thing well, and this is simply not one of them. The age group that Monster High is targeted at would likely find nothing to enjoy here, outside of being able to hang out with the series characters at school. In Exhumed tier, we have Skultimate Roller Maze for Nintendo DS. It's a mere shadow of the more complete console and 3DS version, missing entire game features and having incredibly unappealing and primitive graphics. On a system with Mario Kart DS and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, there's no reason to purchase and play Skultimate Roller Maze. In Dreadful tier, we have Ghoul Spirit for Nintendo Wii. A definite couple of steps up on the DS version with better controls, visuals, and it just kind of gets the vibe of hanging out with the Monster High ghouls a little better. I do enjoy the quips and the jokes from Headmistress Bloodgood over the tannoy. The game is a little bit more in character for the series and understands the assignment a little better. Not terrible. In Creepy tier, we have Skultimate Roller Maze for Nintendo Wii and 3DS. A borderline something, almost somewhere. Not really sure what type of traversal method really suits Monster High. Would it have been better if they were in carts? Maybe if they were on motorbikes, get a face full of ass and some low camera angles. Yeah, maybe then it would have ended up in awful or spooktacular tier. In Beautiful tier, we have 3 titles. New Ghoul in School, the first Monster High game I played, my introduction to the franchise's video games. The game that I filed away in the back of my mind with an intent to do a video on, and all these years later, here we are. This holds up about how I remember. Wish it was better. It genuinely deserves to be a better game than it is. 13 Wishes for Wii U and Wii and 3DS is a solid platformer really lacking in competent design, an easy recommendation to players who have patience with annoying games otherwise avoid. I genuinely like this despite it being as rough as it is. Always enjoyed the whole Arabian Nights theme in Disney's Aladdin, video games like Shantae and Prince of Persia, just about anything with that vibe. It's kind of romantic in a strange way. Game would have been so much better without the fetch quests and obnoxious navigation. And at the tippity top of Beautiful tier, we have 13 Wishes for Nintendo DS. Weirdly basic and practical, but why fix what isn't broken? This title utilizes each character's freaky flaw while avoiding the somewhat archaic nature of the big console's limited character selection on each stage. Genuinely a solid recommendation to anybody who's looking for Nintendo DS gems they may have missed for whatever reason. 13 Wishes for DS, while not particularly interesting, is a sturdy, well-made game, and when it comes to licensed games, that's usually the most you can ask for. And in awful and spooktacular tier, nothing. Maybe someday we'll get a Monster High game that really appeals to my tastes and sensibilities, but in reality, the Monster High franchise is currently dead. It's been almost a decade. We'll never get another video game.
Meow meow!
Outright games? Outright games? Well, we are monsters, and we are proud. It looks like we may well be singing it loud. I'll be keeping a close eye on this one. I like outright games. I like what they put out. None of their games are ever particularly amazing, but they are well made, they are solid, and they're faithful a lot of the time to the source material, so I'll be keeping a very close eye on this one. This got announced only after I started writing this script, and that's the list. What do you think? Drop me a comment because I'm lonely. Also, any ideas on which franchises to tackle next? I'm always open to suggestions. Drop it in the comments. No, seriously, interact. That'd be great. I am Escape Room British, and you've been watching the Monster High tier list. Until next time, if we live that long.